this is Kaveh Saidi again with another quick violin lesson. Today's violin lesson is on vibrato. Now, what is vibrato? Well, vibrato is this. It's an alteration of the pitch at a rapid pace on a single note. And you might say, well, it sounds like the intensity is going up and down. And yes, that is the effect. But what happens is, in order to do it, I slightly raise the pitch and lower the pitch. And make it a little faster to create a little bit more color and intensity. So while it does add intensity, it adds beauty, vibrato does. It also protects the pitch a little bit for a beginning student. Let's say your intonation is not as secure as it could be. Well, going around the pitch up and down can kind of average out your intonation to a degree, but that should not be the priority. Obviously, you want to play in tune first and then add vibrato later. So while you're practicing for intonation, don't forget, no vibrato. So this variation of pitch, how is it done? Well, it's done mainly, at least the way that I do it, with my arm. There are generally two ways to play with vibrato that most violinists do. They use an arm vibrato or a wrist vibrato where they're bending their wrist back and forth. I guess you could do it forward, but in general you would be playing sharp. But I don't advocate the wrist vibrato. I'm not as good at it. I advocate the arm vibrato because to me it keeps your hand shape while you play, which is important for intonation. And also, if you learn arm vibrato, you're also learning shifting up and down the violin. So, arm vibrato, how do you do it? Well, it's not the finger that's vibrating. What's happening is, if you can see, I rolled up my sleeves a little bit so you can see my elbow closing and opening. Now, is it doing it a lot? Am I lifting a big weight to bulk up my bicep? No, I'm not doing that. I'm just rocking back and forth gently. And one thing you could do in order to get this motion is pretend like you're shaking up a can of Coke, having your violin ready while you do it, then putting your third finger down immediately after you do this exercise. Shake a can of Coke, go to the violin and play. Now, another trick, another technique rather, that I learned works really well with beginning students and intermediate students is where you put your thumb underneath the upper bout on the back of the violin, my left thumb obviously, and my fingertip on top of the upper bout. I shake it back and forth. Don't forget, what's shaking? My bicep and my tricep are moving ever so slightly back and forth. Not very fast, not very slow, very relaxed motion. Then after I do this for a while, I go back to the note I want to play. Back and forth. Back and forth. Now it's really important while you do this to remember the fingertip and the thumbprint are the only thing that touch while you play with vibrato. And the inside of your hand, you see this spot right here, is not touching the neck. Now, beginning students play with the inside of their index finger gently touching the neck of the violin. Now, why do you do this? Well, you do it for reference. It keeps your hand kind of in position as you shift up. You can feel where you're at and kind of stay closer to the violin by having that reference point of the inside of your hand. But when you play with vibrato, that inside of your hand comes away from the violin about 2 millimeters, not very far, so please don't exaggerate. and your other fingers lift up. So that finger that you want to vibrate and your thumbprint are the only two things that touch the violin on your left hand. So while I'm playing, I might be leaving fingers down, which is a good policy. But when I get to the note that I want to vibrate, my fingers raise ever so slightly and the inside of my hand comes away from the neck ever so slightly. We're talking about a millimeter or two. The reason why I mention this is because I see a lot of students try vibrato and they think it requires more energy when what you actually need to do it well is the opposite. You need to be incredibly relaxed in your hand. Remember, it's not your hand doing it. It's not your finger squeezing up and down, which is what I did in 2nd grade. It's your arm coming back and forth. So don't forget, thumbprint, fingertip, inside of the base of your hand comes away, your other fingers lift off so you can vibrate. Now, when should you use vibrato? Well, what I tell students who start vibrato for the first time, you use it on long notes. You don't want to use it on fast notes that go by quickly, because first of all, you're really not going to notice it, I guess, but you're playing too fast to have time to vibrate, and the end result could be something like, and it's going to end up sounding like you had a lot of coffee, basically. So what should you do if you have a bunch of fast notes? You wait till the long note. It's going to be a half note usually, and let me give you an example. That long note that I landed on, definitely want to vibrate. Now, in the sequence of your development as a violinist, if you're in Suzuki Book 1, I suggest starting vibrato when you play Chorus from Judas Maccabeus in Suzuki Book 2. That's a good spot if you're doing the Suzuki method to start doing vibrato. And when would you do it? On the half notes. A good spot to do it. So that about sums it up for how to play vibrato for the beginning to intermediate violin and violist. This is Kaveh Saidi. This is another quick violin lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also find my new album entitled Heat, Dust, and Dirt on Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. I'm going to go back to practicing. I hope you will too.